Hello, Fat Puppy here, and today this has been kind of a rabbit hole for me because I started finding information out, and then I found more information out, then I found out about the land that surrounds this area, but you never know what you're going to find out. Here I am on a very busy street running outside of Sumter. Actually, it's still considered part of Sumter. This is a surprise. It's got, I don't know, 5 or 6 marked graves. It's a little family plot, and it's right beside Discount Furniture. This is a highly commercialized area, and that is a tiny little spot. As a matter of fact, this is the receiving area for Discount Furniture. When you go around back to get your couch, this is where you're going to, and you're going to pass right by this tiny little cemetery. Now, I've been up and down this road almost every day of my life for 30 or 35 years, and I never knew this was here until someone gave me a call and said, hey, did you know about this little cemetery? It has tombstones, 2 of them, that belong to World War II veterans. So I decided to check it out. And this is going to be that story. In 1881, a man by the name of Edmund Bradford, an ex-slave, he was born in 1840, bought property, 35 acres, carved out of the plantation of Mill Grove East. Bought the property from Mary J. Jackson, who was the owner of that plantation. He paid $235 for it, and it was 35 acres. This was his little family plot right here. Now, I have a feeling that this was the edge of the property and it went further back that way. And the reason why I have that feeling is because there's a line of huge oak trees that go back quite a ways. And usually a line of trees was used to mark property, a road, or driveway. Just as, you know, just to make it nicer, you know, look nicer. I think Mrs. Jackson, or not Mrs., she never got married. She died at 80 years old and never got married. But anyway, I think that she sold several small pieces of property to ex-slaves. The reason why I think that is because when I actually went to the courthouse to do a little research on this one because I had a little time to do that. I usually don't have that kind of time, but I did this time. I found out that the property surrounding this was also owned by black people. So I think that she sold off pieces of it, maybe to pay off debts, taxes. I mean, usually that's why you would sell property back then. And so I believe that's how he ended up with this property. Now, the funny thing, I wouldn't call it funny, but what I like about it is that out of 35 acres, there's a small chunk of it that still belongs to the family. On the other side of this furniture discount outlet is a house. And I don't believe the house is all that old, probably built in the 1940s or 1950s. But as of the 1990s, a man by the name of Joel Bradford lived there. And I believe someone that's related to him still lives in that house in this highly commercialized district. Now I'm going to get on and we're going to talk about the stories of the individuals in the cemetery. Very, very interesting stories. And we're going to start that in just a moment. You know, there are a couple of very important things that I carry with me when I do this. Obviously my camera, my tripod. I usually try to carry my Fat Puppy trademark hat. Sometimes my Fat Puppy t-shirt. My notes, which I have a couple different sources right now. But something I rarely carry that I really need to carry for my benefit, but mainly for yours, is a little whisk broom so I can clean these off, and a flashlight so I can show the side view and you can actually see the lettering on it. I don't think you'll be able to see the lettering on this, but I'm going to read it to you. I believe this is the oldest tombstone, as it should be, because this is Mr. Edmund Bradford and his wife. Remember, he's the one that bought the property. Mr. Edmund Bradford was born in 1840 and died in 1915. Charlotte Bradford, that was his wife, was born in 1850 and died in 1910. So Mr. Bradford, he was 25 years old when the Civil War was over. He was a young man as a slave, as far as I know of. I haven't seen anything to indicate otherwise. You know, there were some freedmen, but not many, not many. But anyway, he's the guy. He is the man that paid out the money to buy this property, which I think we're at the edge of now. We're on the if you're on Broad Street, it'd be the left edge. And I think the right edge is really just a couple hundred feet that way, but this is a long piece of property and probably went far back into what is now Hunter's Crossing subdivision. There's a field stone. It was used to mark graves. It's rather sad that there's no tombstone here, but I don't really have, I think this is the second oldest marker, if you want to call it that. I just found out who's buried here because that cross right there has the name written, Liddy Dixon. I've done no research on Liddy, so I don't know anything about her, but I'll tell you why I think it's the second oldest stone in a moment. This is the stone. I'm gonna have to read it to you. I don't think I have it written down here. Yeah, I do. Good. So I don't have to sit there and turn my back on you. So this is the stone of Lenora Dixon. Now Lenora Dixon was the daughter of Liddy Dixon, whose field stone I just showed you, and the daughter of Richard Dixon. Now Lenora died in 1918. She was born in 1890, so she was 18. No, I'm sorry, my math stinks. 28. She was 28 years old when she died. She died fairly young. They were doing death certificates back then, but I could not find anything regarding why she died or how she died or any of that. I wish I could have, because usually those things kind of intrigue me. Seemed like the influenza was real bad at that time, that killed a lot of people. I was gonna say millions, maybe millions worldwide, I don't know. But anyway, this is where she's buried at. This is also a grave spot, but I have no idea who's buried here. All that's here is plastic flowers, nothing at all indicating a name. And I'm gonna speak to that situation in just a moment. I just gotta get up off the ground here and situate the camera. This graveyard is taken care of. Someone knows these people. No doubt the house that's on the other side of this store, they're related to them. But like that wood, well, you can't see it from here, but that wood stake over there, you know, had the person's name inscribed in it. Someone put that there, fairly recent. And then there's the plastic flowers over here that I just showed you. You know, someone put that there fairly recent. I did see on a plat, actually it's the plat to this store here, that the cemetery was part of the Good Hope United Methodist Church, if I remember correctly. And then I seen an older plat that said that the cemetery was under the care of St. John's Methodist Church. So I'm really not sure about that, if there's a church that's in charge to make sure everything's good here, or if it's just family keeping it up. But I'm glad to say this is not an abandoned graveyard. It's just in a really odd place. Oh, I'm sorry. It's not in an odd place. The furniture store is in an odd place. That right there is the marker of Clarence Green. He's a World War II veteran. I'm going to show a picture because I know this, you can't hardly see nothing. Clarence Green was born in 1921 and he died in 1961. He wasn't quite 40 years old when he died. And he died, as best as I could tell by looking at the death certificate from encephalitis. The only problem with trying to read those death certificates is they're usually written by doctors, and doctors are notorious for sloppy handwriting, but I think that's what it was. And he was a World War II vet. He was related to everybody else. Everybody in this yard is related to everybody else. I got a feeling he was the grandson of Mr. Edmund Bradford. Now, it's tragic he died so young, but the real tragedy is going to be that stone right there that I'm about to talk about. That's his brother, who also died young. Mr. Warren Green is buried in this spot. He was also a World War II veteran. He was born in 1924 and he died in 1959. Now, he also died kind of young, but his was not by disease, his was by violence. His wife stabbed him to death. His wife's name was Bertha Green, and in 1959, they got in an argument, a heavy argument at their house, and she stabbed him with an ice pick 3 times. Now, an ice pick is very thin, and you normally don't get killed by an ice pick unless the ice pick finds its mark, and apparently this one did. I couldn't find details as to what happened, as far as what kind of argument, what was the accusations, was he drunk? I say that because him and his brother got in a little trouble. There were a few headlines in the newspaper because of some drunk escapades, I guess you could say, they got into. Bertha Green was his wife, but she was only sentenced to 2 years in prison. I kind of wonder if that might have been a self-defense kind of thing going on, where they, where she was guilty of some wrong, but really she was just defending herself. You know, I really don't know. Some of these things you just have to infer. I am standing by an old oak tree, one of many in a line that goes down this line right here. You can't see it, or at least not that I can tell you can see it anyway, but there's a little hurricane fence right there, kind of weaves in and out of the line because the current property, that's the way it's marked out. I took a further walk down that way into the woods. There's nothing back there except these big, huge oak trees planted in a line. And there's some back there that are much older than these right here are. And you know, I really believe that at least some of the older ones were there when they brought this property back in the 1880s. And you have to know, boys being boys, well, children being children, that the 2 Green brothers that I showed you a few minutes ago, that they climbed these trees and they had good times in these trees. By the way, something I didn't mention is I first posted information about this property on Facebook, on my Facebook. And one of my friends said, yeah, I said, I remember the Bradfords owning some property there. And as a matter of fact, I remember they had a vegetable stand. And I wonder if that's maybe from the house that's over there, or if there might have been another house over here. I'm 90% sure that the house that's over there, that's on the other side of this discount furniture store, is not old enough to be the house they originally lived in. I just find it fascinating to know that there are family members still living on at least a little bitty piece of this property. I think it's maybe a ½ acre out of what was originally 35 acres. Out of what originally was a fairly large plantation that went halfway down Stammy Livestock Road. As far as I can tell, maybe even further. Anyway, I think I'm gonna wrap it up. That's it for this one, and we'll catch you on the go round on the next one.